Annenberg Learner.
I'm Katie Quackenbush. I teach Arabic at Boston Latin Academy in Boston. Today's class was an Arabic 1 class. They're all 8th graders, and this is their first year of Arabic. I open class by greeting the class. In Arab culture, I always tell them greetings are really important. We always use multiple greetings with people before we get into the meat of any conversation. اليوم سنلعب لعبة مع الموسيقى. The objective was to ask and answer questions about what you and others like to do during their free time. بعدين سنتكلم عن وقت الفراغ. Yesterday they did an authentic reading about how Saudi Arabians spend their free time. وبعدين سنكتب عن وقت الفراغ. Today's goal was, okay, now we need to know what people in our class like to do in their free time. Do they like the same things as the Saudi students or different things? في مجموعة عندكم. We did sort of a speaking warm-up activity. مفردة أو الصور هنا صح؟ عندنا صور. The idea is that there are pictures in a paper bag. The pictures represent the vocabulary that we were working on, so the different hobbies. يلا.
There was music, and it's like hot potato. You have to pass around the bag. And if the music stops and you're the last one to hold the bag, you have to pick up a card, and it has an activity on it in Arabic.
And they had to ask somebody else in the group, do you like whatever the activity was? And then the other person had to respond to them. The idea of that was to get them practicing the same question structures that they were going to use later on.
هل تحبين أستمع إلى الموسيقى؟ أحب أن أستمع إلى الموسيقى.
Today I was listening for, are they conjugating the verbs correctly when they're talking to you versus saying I? How are they doing on this vocabulary? Are they still struggling with remembering the meanings of the different vocabulary words, or have they got that at this point?
Derek, هل تحب أن ألعب الفيديو؟
أنا أحب ألعاب الفيديو.
هنية، هل تحبين أن ألعب الفيديو؟ أنا أحب ألعاب الفيديو.
اجلسوا من فضلكم. After that game was done, I passed out to them a handout that had a chart on it. That chart had 10 rows for them to write 10 different people's names in class.
So she gave us a handout, and we had to go around the room asking people what they like to do in their free time in Arabic. And I think with her lessons, she tries to make us get to know each other better.
In a group of 3, each student would ask about 2 activities, and then they would have a complete data set of the 6 activities in their group together. مرحبا يا مارين. كيف حالك? I chose a student who was sitting in the front, and we played out an example of how the conversation might go. في وقت الفراغ هل أنت على التليفون؟ ممتاز. وأكتب مارين check. And I demonstrated on the board. I would check or put an X depending on if she likes or doesn't like to do that activity during her free time. And then I had them get up and start walking around the room, and I asked them to greet each other before they start their conversation every time. Greet each other, ask how the other person's doing, then you ask your questions, thank them, and then say goodbye. So we always try to practice the whole conversation, not just getting to the point, because the idea is to practice as much Arabic as possible.
مرحبا. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
كيفك؟
الحمد لله، كيفك؟
الحمد لله أنا ممتازة. أنت ممتازة. وتحب أن تشاهد التلفزيون؟
أنا أحب التلفزيون في وقت الفراغ. هل تحبين أشرب قهوة في المكان في وقت الفراغ؟
أنا أحب أن أشرب قهوة في وقت الفراغ.
هل تحبين الكحول في الإنترنت في وقت الفراغ؟
أنا أحب في الإنترنت في وقت الفراغ.
شكرا.
It gets us surrounded by Arabic because she's always telling us we have to disassociate with English so we can know Arabic as its own language.
كيفك؟
أنا أحب
هل تحبين أن
تحبين من
قهوة
أصدقاء
في الكافيه؟ هل تحبين أن تدخل في الإنترنت؟
من أصدقائي وتحب
هل أنت
تشاهد
مع الأصدقاء في وقت
The idea was that they were supposed to get 10 different data points about who likes and dislikes each activity. So after they had a handout that was a blank sheet for a bar graph to be created, and I asked them to choose one writer to be the scribe, and everyone else had to tell the writer in Arabic the data that they got, and ultimately they'll have a complete bar graph with all of the data.
Sing friends.
La Inglisi. I tell them that's La Inglisi time, which means we're not going to speak any English. Arabi bas.
صديقة
مع الأصدقاء.
مع أصدقاء 1 2 3 4 5 6 7
حد الشاهد
I try and be very reflective and conscious about how much I correct students. I don't want to correct a student every time they make a mistake because that becomes really discouraging.
التلفزيون.
Oh, for real?
التلفزيون.
Okay.
Not the bad.
Tomorrow we'll do some comparing of what students in our class said and what students in Saudi Arabia said about their free time activities. نخلص بكرة إن شاء الله أو يوم الجمعة إن شاء الله. تمام؟ مع السلامة. مع السلامة.
For information about this and other Annenberg Learner programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org.